Hello YouTube, welcome back to the Cassidy Car Cave. Today we're going to talk about the Mercedes CL600 that I sold on Cars and Bids and talk about why it's still here. But first, this. All right, so we're at the shop today, taking a look at the Mercedes CL600, and I'll give you one guess about why this car is still here. What system in this car could cause problems that would make me uncomfortable selling it to, unfortunately, a very nice guy that was the high bidder on the car. So I came over to get the car after the auction. I'd been gone about a week. Came over to get the car here at the warehouse. And I looked at it and it was sitting low in its suspension, and I thought, maybe it's just bled off over a couple of days and needs to be fired up. But unfortunately that wasn't the case. When I started it up, I got the obligatory ABC visit shop red warning message, the more serious one. And I hit the suspension to raise it up, and it did try to raise it up, but it just wasn't doing it right. So I hooked it up to my Star Diagnostics machine here, did a quick rodeo on it, and it was showing low pressure on the ABC pump, which had been replaced before I bought the car, but it's been several years now. Even though it's not that many miles, it definitely was causing some trouble. So when I revved the car up, I could kind of hear it making an ugly sound, and it just didn't provide enough pressure to the system to keep it where it was supposed to be. In fact, it wouldn't really rodeo at all. There was a problem with that pump keeping up enough pressure to keep each suspension corner going up and down. So it wasn't a leak. There wasn't any ABC fluid laying around anywhere or anything telltale about anything different, a strut or anything major going on. But the pump had gone bad. So unfortunately, it was going to take me a while to fix it. And the guy that bought the car out of St. Louis was very understanding, and I don't blame him. He kind of bagged off on the car after these issues, and I think maybe he went a different direction, hopefully bought something that he found that was great. But this car just wasn't ready, and I apologize for that. That was totally on me. I hate it that I wasted his time. I wasted Cars and Bids time. I wasted some of my time, but that doesn't really matter. I hate that the car wasn't ready to sell. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do a little video on how to replace the ABC pump on these cars. It's not too bad. It's not buried deep in the engine. I ordered a rebuilt ABC pump off the internet that's got a warranty with it. I'll go through today, get the old one off. The part should be here this afternoon. Put the new one on, and we'll do a rodeo and a major test ride to make sure that everything's okay. And then we'll relist the car back on Cars and Bids. And it probably is going to be, a challenge for the car to go through Cars and Bids again, to see what kind of money it brings. But it's okay. That's on me. It was my fault for not having the car ready to go. I thought it was, but the ABC system on these cars is just very cantankerous, and it really is the soft link in these cars, the weak link. They just, when it works great. The SL500 has a great ABC system on it, but on this one, it just, is giving me some issues. I've replaced both valve blocks, front and rear, and thought it was ready to go, but it wasn't. So we'll make sure it's ready to go this time. We'll replace the ABC pump. The new owner will have a fresh pump, fresh valve block rebuilds, as well as the other things I've done in this car, the coil packs and some of the other things on these V12s that break. But let's get started. I'm going to kind of take some pictures here and there. I'll show a little bit of video. This won't be a start to finish kind of video. We'll blast through some of the boring parts. I'll try to let you know what tools I'm using at what time, and we'll go from there. So let's pull the camera off. I'll show you the pump, kind of where it's at and what we need to do to get it going. So as far as pumps go in these cars, So as far as things that are difficult to get to goes, this isn't too bad. in this car. The ABC pump, I'll use my stethoscope here, which I helped to. This is the ABC pump down here. And you can see it's got lines that go into the power steering reservoir as well as the ABC reservoir itself. So there'll be a couple of lines that have to come off. We'll remove the fan shroud to make it easier to get to. Obviously take the serpentine belt off, and then hopefully we can undo a couple of bolts, get this ABC pump out of there. We'll remove the reservoir so we have room to get it out. And then when the new one's here this afternoon, we'll put it back in, fill it up, bleed the system, do a rodeo, and hopefully this car will be ready to go. All right, let's get to it. Well, the first thing we're going to do is remove the fan shroud. It's not too bad. There's bolts here and another one over here that will need to come out. And then we can detach the fan and lift this fan shroud out of here. So looks like 10mm bolts here. We'll take those out and I'll catch up in a bit. Okay, maybe a little bit more involved than just taking those two bolts off. What we actually have to do is there's two bolts here. Take those off so you can release the fan shroud. And then there's a hose that goes to the thermostat housing in the top of the engine. This hose here that's in the way of the lug that helps the shroud fit into the radiator. So you have to take that out, but in order to get that out, you have to take this hose off the radiator. And of course, in order to do that, you have to drain the radiator. So there's a red screw valve there. We got a clear plastic tubing. We're going to drain the radiator, and then we'll take that hose off and hopefully pull the fan shroud out. We can get to our ABC pump. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, I won't lie. Getting that pipe out was more of a pain than I can imagine. So this pipe that goes from the thermostat around and down into the radiator has to come out to be able to fit the fan shroud out. And you pull this clip down, take the pipe off the bottom. There's a hard plastic pipe that runs across the bottom of the radiator that this plugs into. There's just a little clamp there. Take this off, loosen this, press this out this way, pull this up, and this whole thing gets out of the way then. And really it has to come out to be able to get to the lug on the fan shroud that has to go around the radiator right here. So that was not easy, but anyways, it's out, and now we have good clean access to the pump and everything that we'll need to get to change that pump out. So let's carry on. Okay, so we've got that fan shroud out of the way, and the next step is to take the serpentine belt off the front of the engine so that we can release the tension on the pulleys and most importantly on the ABC pump pulley. So it's a 17mm socket that's just below the adjuster pulley here. Put a clamp on that, or put a socket on that, turn it counterclockwise, and you can release the tension, release the belt. So let's see if that works. All right, so that worked pretty well. We got the tensioner to release. The belt is now off of the pulley for the ABC pump, and we'll take these 3 bolts off to take that pulley off and carry on with the next step. I'm basically following the star diagnostic procedure Mercedes has. You can find this online if you don't have access to it. It's pretty common knowledge to be able to find that one, but we'll keep following that. I'll update you with the next step. Okay, so to loosen these bolts, you're going to have a way to hold the pulley steady, because obviously you can't crank on it right or it just spins around. So get yourself a long screwdriver or a pry bar, pry it in the next bolt over. We're using an E12 Torx. Get it on there. Torque on these isn't too high, so they break loose fairly easy. There we go. And it's loose. Do that with all 3. Take those bolts off, and then take the pulley off. All right, next step is to remove this connector here. It's the connector for the ABC suction restrictor valve, this guy here. You just pinch these two in and pull it straight back. Nothing too complicated there. Probably can't see. Pinch, pull. Okay, let's get that out of the way. On to the next step. Okay, the next step is to take off this supply line from the ABC reservoir. I've undid the clamp, slid it back some. Make sure you have some of these. These are pliers, basically made out of plastic, that go over these lines and clamp them off. It's just going to save you a bunch of mess. They're really handy. I've also put a oil mat, absorbent mat underneath here. I'm not sure how much it'll catch, but it's got to be better than nothing. And I've got some underneath. I don't know how much is going to come out here, but let's take it off and see. Oh, not too bad at all. All right, just stick this underneath there, let it absorb. Great, awesome. All right, get this out of the way, dump it on the pad. There you go, that clamp is keeping the rest of the nasty oil from getting everywhere. Okay, we'll let that drain a little bit, clean up our mess, and see what the next step is. Okay, so we're on to the next step. We're going to take off the supply line here from the pump that goes to the power steering reservoir. You probably know this, but this pump has two functions. It controls the ABC system and the power steering fluid pump. So it's a dual nature pump there. And this line goes to the power steering reservoir. It obviously doesn't hold as much. I've got the clamp slid back. We'll pull this off, see if we can't catch some of the oil here. And I have a rubber plug in this line so it doesn't leak as much, and a zip tie just holding it securely in there. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I've got made myself a reminder. Take out plug in reservoir line, exclamation point. That would be something that I would do, is I would forget to take that plug out and reassemble everything and wonder why I've got no power or nothing going on. So, and I did take off the air filter intake here as well, just to give me some more room. It does let you see the turbo. And the coil packs I replaced. This is just the turbo. It never has needed or has been replaced. The pump has been rebuilt. You can see this sticker on here that shows that it's a rebuilt pump, but it's bad. We'll pull it off and put the new one on hopefully this afternoon. All right, let's get this line off. There we go. A little bit of oil, but not too bad. Get this up above the reservoir, it should be fine. All right, I'll secure this and we'll go on to the next step. All right, so the next step is to remove the entire reservoirs for the power steering and the ABC pump. So I've got this clamp taken off, got the hose clamped off. We're going to pull this out, see if we can't stick a stopper in there pretty quick to minimize the damage. Two reasons I'm doing this. Number one, I don't want oil everywhere. Number two, you got to be pretty careful with the ABC system to not get contaminants in the system, in the fluid, or it can be really bad for it. So this will help to keep the lines from getting dust and dirt and grime and everything in them. Old trusty pry bar. There we go. Got it. All right, just a little bit came out. Too bad. All right, so now we'll take the I've got the clamp off. We'll take the hose that leads into the power steering reservoir fill off, and then we can lift this whole assembly out. Get another hose down in here again. I've got this clamped off, but let's try to minimize the damage. Ready? Pop. Okay, good. Not much came out of there at all. Again, we'll probably cap this line off just to make sure that no contaminants get in there. Let's see, am I ready to pull this out, or is there another step involved? Of course, I've taken the mounting screws out. Feels loose. Get it out of the jigsaw puzzle maze that's in here. Coming. Hose caught up down here. Glad I put those plugs in. And we're out. Put this somewhere where it won't make a mess. Okay, now we have good access to our ABC pump. I believe the next step will be to remove some of these lines that are going into it. This one here for sure. And probably this one. And then undo the mounting bolts and we should be able to pull it out. All right, see you at the next step. All right, the next step is to remove this 17mm line that comes off the back of the pump. And I'm not a huge, you have to buy every special tool, every mentioned thing, but anytime you're undoing a hose like this, you really do need a wrench with an open end so you can get it around that bolt and get the proper amount of torque on that nut, excuse me, without having to get a wrench sideways. So this one I've already got loose, but just fit it around there, up, and then yank it loose. And once it's loose, you can use a regular wrench to kind of fit in and get the rest of the way out. Since it's tight, you're not going to be able to get much of a turn on it. That's fine, as long as you're not putting much torque on it. So we'll take this bolt out, and then we'll catch up with you on the next step. Okay, so the next step is we have to get something else out of the way. Isn't it great when you do these projects? There's always a million things you have to take, get out of the way. They have nothing to do with really what you're doing to change it, but it's in the way. So we're going to take this bolt out right here that holds this air conditioner line, because it's in the way of our access to the banjo nut or banjo bolt for the two supply lines to the power steering ABC pump. So we'll take this out and I'll see you the next step. Okay, so we are getting there. There are two bolts that need to come out right here and right here that mount the pump to the block of the engine. And then the nightmare is down in here. There's a banjo bolt. That's a 19mm banjo bolt. And I don't know anything to tell you other than it's not easy to do. But if you move the pump, you can pull the pump out about 3 or 4 inches and get a wrench on that bolt. Put some vice grips on the pump, because you know this pump's bad anyways. To hold the pump, you can undo that bolt, loosen that nut, and it should come out. So I've got that nut loose. We'll check back here in a second. I'll get that off and see if it comes out. Okay, so yeah, after you do a million turns on that 19mm banjo bolt, really a quarter turn at a time, very slow. But it backs out, and once that bolt is out, pump just comes right out of the car. So take a look. I've got the pump over here on my little roller cart. Here it is. These are the two mounting bolts that go in and then into the engine block. And that's pretty much it. So this one's been remanufactured already. You can see right here, there's a sticker on it from when it was rebuilt before. Just gives you an idea of how weak this ABC system is. It's a great system when it works. You can see a video with my SL500. It's going to be on Cars and Bid soon. where that ABC system, I go over a railroad track here at the shop, and it just like a boat, so smooth. But I just don't think the components were up to the pressures that were put on it at this time. There was like 190 bar pressure on the ABC system in these cars, and the pumps, the seals, the gaskets just weren't up to it. So you get a car that's 15 years old, 17 years old, 100,000 miles, and things start breaking with the ABC system. So this one's had a lot fixed on it. We'll fix this pump, and then I think it'll be pretty solid and ready to go. Wasn't too bad getting this out, just taking a lot of parts out of the way so that you can get actually to the part you want. It's always the challenge, right? So I'll put it back together. If anything of note comes up in the reassembly, I'll do a quick video with that. And then once it's back together, we'll do a little test drive of this car. Thanks a lot. See you in a bit. Okay, so it's been a couple of days. We've got the ABC pump out of the CL600. The new rebuilt pump has arrived, and I'll show you that here in a second. We're going to go through kind of some of the steps to put it in. I won't cover each and every step unless there's something different from, the disassembly. Things I notice along the way, I'll turn the video on and we'll let you take a look at things that are different from just reversing the order and getting it put back together. So here's the pump I got. Obviously it's, same pump, it's been rebuilt, but everything looks good on it. It's got all the same connectors in the same places. All the right harnesses are there. So we'll get this one put in and then send the old one back because there's a core charge on it, and we'll be good to go. All right, here we go. Okay, so as you can see, the car is back together. Everything did go back in pretty much the way it came out. Just keep track of your bolts and nuts and make sure you don't end up with any extra parts. But really, there's not that much to take apart on this. There's a coolant hose to get out of the way, the fan for the radiator. Not too much really had to come off to get this to get to this. Not as bad as I maybe would have thought this ABC pump would have been. One thing, when you get the ABC pump back on, fill it up with fluid, the correct fluid, before you hook up the serpentine belt or anything, and just rotate the pump by itself, hooked up to the supply line, so you can prime the pump. I probably should have put that in the video, but very important to get that pump primed. Otherwise the car will start and you'll, I got no pressure. But just make sure your pump is primed and you're good to go. So that's it for this car. Look for it back on Cars and Bids. I'm gonna relist it. I think the ABC system's in good shape now. I think I'll do a rodeo test in a separate video just to make sure everybody's confirmed and happy that it's all good. But yeah, it feels really good. Not too bad on the pump. All right, thanks for hanging out in the Cat City Car Cave.